Hello, hello. Welcome,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Welcome to our second try, our second go around for Starship Flight 12. Today, we have a little co-host swap. I'm instead of joined by John. We've got Aussie friend of the channel, back here,
G'day, g'day.
and today we are hoping for a good flight with, shall we say, a lot less terminal count shenanigans. Yesterday was that was something I've never quite experienced before.
Yeah, look, I watched the playback of the live stream from yesterday. Unfortunately, during that particular moment, I was at work. I have a job. I have to be there. So yeah, at that particular moment in time, so I watched it all back. And yes, they seemed really, really desperate to make sure that they were going, and they were trying to get as many fixes in as they possibly could. So yeah, one of the updates I saw from that was it wasn't anybody's fault. It was actually a pin on the hold down clamps that actually it didn't seem to retract. So as far as I'm aware, that's what I read this morning. So yeah, very interesting. But yeah, hopefully this is a little bit more successful than it was yesterday.
Yep. And per Elon, we know that they were working on a fix for that overnight. With the fact that I mean, looking at our live feed here from, I believe, from Joaquin, the tank farm is going absolutely insane. Uh,
Ooh.
I think that is a good sign that we are trending toward fueling,
Yep.
and things are, which would indicate that that fix overnight was probably successful, and things are looking a little bit better today as well. We currently are sitting at the weather is at 85% go, and hot off the press just minutes ago, we just got confirmation that the start actually before their usual T minus 50-minute go no go poll, the Starship team has polled go for prop load. So we are moving right toward the top of the window.
Nice. That's fantastic news. That sounds like it's actually a go. And sorry for everyone who's watching me. I'm literally got several screens at the moment and windows open. I'm looking at absolutely everything, and I'm trying to think. Okay, what's going to happen next? The weather looks good. The 24 flight radar 24/7 seems to be calming down. Sorry, I've
Yep.
got several things on the move. So yeah, it's a little bit frantic at the moment for myself, just to try and make sure that yeah, everything is looking good. As far as I can tell, yeah, there seems to be they seem to be doing a pressure release off the actual vehicle. So that's that cloud you can see midway up the actual rocket. So that's what it's looking like at this point. So it looks like it's more of a go than it was yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are looking very, very good today. I think we could kind of call yesterday a an advanced wet dress rehearsal, where the weather is looking better, ground systems, vehicle, everything seems to be looking a lot better yesterday. I know part of the reason they pushed into the window yesterday was there were some concerns about upper level winds. The flight software just kind of didn't like what it was seeing, and now, instead of pushing into the window where they didn't hit that initial fueling milestone, we are heading right toward the opening of the window, and in about 20 minutes or so we should see propellant start to flow into Starship. And SpaceX GT Mike Wormwood, welcome. I know a couple of you were here yesterday. We are incredibly grateful for you guys coming back after the the let's call it entertaining, unusual, very suspenseful terminal count attempt that we got yesterday.
It was on, it was off, it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off.
I
I can't even imagine what it was like for you guys trying to do a hosting a session with that. It just looked frustrating as hell.
it,
And
it I will say it was entertaining. Nerves were definitely starting to fray a little bit. But I can only imagine what that was like for everyone with cameras out there at Starbase.
yeah,
I've been there. I've been through holds and is it going, is it not? And having it doing that while you're there with a camera in your hands, other cameras you're trying to run with 40 seconds notice is I I do envy not being able to be out there a little bit, but that particular part of it, I do not envy, and I have the utmost respect for the whole team who have been able to do that. And speaking of the team, we have currently two, possibly a third team member who's going to be out there. We have Matthew T and Joaquin, who are both out at Starbase. And Joaquin, if y'all were here for our Starship, or not Starship, excuse me, this is Starship, our Falcon heavy coverage. Joaquin brought the live feed for that and is bringing us a live feed today. So you know the tracking for this launch is going to be exceptional. And I don't know about you, Josh, but I'm looking at all this condensation coming off of the tank farm, coming off of the tower vent there, and it looks a little more humid than it did yesterday.
Yeah,
So
there's definitely a lot more vapor we can see, and it is the condensation that we can see. So it must be a little bit warmer. Yeah, very interesting. Unless, of course, they're actually completely detanking, but the the venting up the side of the rocket actually indicates that things are still going on, and it's still pressing.
yeah,
So in other words, being filled. So it looks like it's actually in progress.
yeah,
Whether or
yeah.
not whether or
Yeah,
not that'll happen.
usually when we see the tower vent like this and the tank farm going crazy, this is a good indication that we are heading toward fueling. I think they should be in propellant line chill down right now.
Mhm.
But seeing it have just making so much more vapor than yesterday has me thinking in the back of my mind, I wonder if we might get extremely lucky and get to see some amazing vapor cones and
Ooh,
some cool phenomena like that in flight. That's one
yeah.
thing. If you've ever been to an air show out there, humid conditions tend to make for some very spectacular views.
Yes.
And you know, I think it was it last flight 12, 10 or 12 12 or 11 or 12 that had the giant vapor cone. I think it was the last flight.
I think it was the last
Um
flight as well. Like it's been
yeah.
a while since SpaceX has done one of these, and there's a lot to learn and all that sort of stuff. We saw the update from SpaceX themselves, and almost that documentary that they made, where they were actually explaining a lot of stuff that was going on. So yes, this is compared to Flight 11. This is Flight 12. This is a completely new architecture. As far as I'm aware, it's version 3. This is, and also, as rightly pointed out, it is actually on a brand new launch pad that has proper flame trench and everything, rather than the. Sorry, I'm going to say rather than the bidet they tried to use at the very first couple of launches and stuff like that. I mean, sorry, what are they trying to do with that flow? I mean, yes, I know it's good for suppression and all that sort of stuff, but when they half destroyed the pad, like, guys, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, there the pad 1 was very kind of reminiscent of the Saturn 1 milk stool, but the
Yes.
Saturn 1 milk stool maybe was dare I say, done with a little more reason, where, pad 1 was kind of quick and dirty. Pad 2 here this feels like a serious launch pad that's not going to be half destroyed every flight. um, and, for upping the flight cadence and for making sure that the vehicle actually has a good environment to lift off in.
Yep.
This is a big improvement to see. One of the issues that, we've seen with a lot of large rockets, even back to STS-1, the first shuttle launch, is some of the shock dynamics. When those engines start up, they can make a big overpressure. And famously, STS-1 was almost lost because when the solids ignited, the overpressure bounced off the bottom of the flame trench, came back up, and almost wrecked the nose RCS pod that would have caused the loss of the flight.
Yep.
The actual flame, an actual flame diverter here with a much more aggressive deluge system is going to control acoustics and shock interactions a lot better. And that's important because this is the first time that Raptor V3 is going to be flying on a vehicle, and compared to just about every other liquid engine except maybe the F1, this is an incredibly powerful engine, much more powerful and running much closer to the margins than even Raptor 2. And that's reflected by some of the flight milestones we're seeing. We're expecting this flight to hit max Q at only about 45 seconds into flight, which is, for something this size to hit max Q that quickly, is shocking. I think this isn't going to lumber off the pad like some of the old Starship flights. I think this is going to jump. But when you have that incredible amount of power, you have to be very careful starting all those engines, because you don't want to cause damage to them. You don't want to cause damage to the vehicle. And with this pad, you don't want to cause significant damage to that either.
Yeah, well, considering it's going to be for most of the return operations and all that sort of stuff, they've got a lot of things to figure out. And by the way, thank you very much for actually correcting that. Milk still sounds much better than bidet, what I was using. But yeah, it just just thought I'd point that out. So the whole idea of this is rapid reuse and the able to refly it and all that sort of stuff. So the arms on the actual launch tower for catching are even shorter, so that way they have a different level of moment of inertia and all that sort of stuff. So that way they're able to close a lot quicker and all that sort of stuff. So SpaceX has actually done a lot of thoughts in regard to all of this and making sure that it is rapidly reusable and they're able to refly whenever they can. That said, this will be an expended mission once more, which means that it'll go to a suborbital trajectory. And why I'm here, hopefully it'll work, is it'll actually land off the west coast of Australia, which is somewhere in the Indian Ocean. So that'll be very interesting. We won't see it from here because I'm on the other side of the country, which is a 5-hour flight, 5.5-hour flight, if you really want to talk about it. But so it's quite a significant distance away from the Australian coast. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens when this one comes in, whether or not we'll get any live footage from the buoy, which is sitting in the ocean, like we've done in previous flights, like we've done on Flight 11, the last one. It'll be because those images have been really cool. They've also looking at tile reuse, all that sort of stuff. There's a whole bunch of things on this particular flight they're looking to test to make sure that they've got that rapid reusability up and ready to go. The flight will have 22 dummy satellites, Starlink satellites that are going up there as well. I believe the last two are scheduled to have a camera on them, so that way we can actually get a backward shot of Starship as it releases all of those. So that'll be awesome to see. And then because they're actually testing whether or not the delivery method of those Starlink satellites, which is Starlink, I think version 2, they're looking to test that because they have done that with mass simulators before on Starship 11. So yeah, they're actually trying to get this one to be as rapidly reusable, but also functional at the same time with this particular flight. So that way for the next flight after this one, 13, maybe 14. I don't know if there's any superstition in Starbase at all, whether or not they're going to skip 13 altogether, because unlucky 13 or lucky 13 in this case. There's a whole bunch of work that's being done towards making sure this is rapidly reusable. And within the next 1 or 2 flights after this one, yes, I think we'll actually see things like it starting to return to tower and catches and all that sort of stuff. So the booster will be expended as well. So we won't see that cool part where the booster comes back.
Yep, absolutely. Like you mentioned, the booster is going to be expended. This is a new pad, a new booster. There are enough significant changes that SpaceX just wants to err on the side of caution and make sure that everything is going to be in a safe state. Make sure that they can actually get through the whole landing sequence with the booster, and to make sure that the pad is good for the landing as well, because there have been 1 or 2 little, I can think of one particular flight, I forget the number, but where the tracking antenna on the top of the tower actually was damaged and prevented a landing. Now, you mentioned those buoys, that buoy that's going to be offshore, and a little inside baseball, well, not inside baseball anymore, I guess, but something SpaceX mentioned on their previous stream is it is not just going to be one buoy this time. They have a number of different buoys, at least I think 4, maybe more buoys out there, as well as multiple drones that are going to be in position to catch the ship landing. So combine that with the more than 50 cameras littered throughout the ship.
Yes.
SpaceX
Yes.
has
Thank
done
you
an
for that.
incredible
Yeah,
job.
50 cameras.
Yeah.
50 cameras. That's incredible. Look, I don't know if I don't know about you, Frank, but I don't know if you've got a ship tracker or something like that. Maybe I could sneaky across to where if they've got drones in the area, they're going to have a ship nearby. That because drones only last so long and only go so far. I wonder if someone might be able to go out there and with a camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe me.
Certainly a thought.
Yeah,
But
it's a thought bubble. I have lots of those.
yeah, yeah. Fair to say though that we are going to get, I think, probably the most amazing and the most diverse set of views that we've ever seen from Starship. We've already seen a few of these with the wide angle camera in the interstage. That's something we've never seen before. And
Yeah.
we've even gotten a few sneak previews of some of the onboard cameras during the rollout and during the wet dress rehearsal, which is, and again, something that we've never seen before. I'm incredibly excited. And a big shout out. We've got Joaquin and our other co-host John out there in the chat. Good to see you guys here. And Morgan, I completely agree. We have seen Joaquin's tracking in the past. We know what Joaquin is capable of. It's gonna be a fantastic track. And given the conditions, again, I'm not gonna say for sure, but I'm not going to rule out the possibility of something like a really amazing vapor cone, because again, max Q at only 45 seconds. This thing is going to be hauling off the pad. It has just so much more thrust, and hitting those kind of speeds lower means it's likely to have a lot more humidity in the atmosphere when it is getting to max Q, when it's breaking the sound barrier. Can't say for sure, obviously, but I would say that there is certainly a possibility. And as far as the engine startup goes, SpaceX GT, we do know that the booster has to do a staggered startup. Just because if you try to light all 33 of those engines at once, there's a pretty good chance that you would damage the booster, maybe even destroy it. As far as the staggered startup of the ship engines during hot staging, we're not 100% sure yet. I would sort of expect that they are going to do a staggered startup. As a reminder, the ship has 6 engines. 3 of those sea-level Raptor 3 engines in the middle, and around the periphery there are 3 vacuum-optimized Raptor 3s. My expectation would be that we're going to see those sea-level engines start up in a very, very tight sequence, but probably not the exact same time. And then once those are at full power, we would see those vacuum optimized engines start. But it may as well look like they're all starting up at once. The differences in these startup sequences it's measured in milliseconds. So a keen eye might be able to catch the gap, but it'll look like it's all happening pretty much at once. Don't rule out the possibility of a major vaporization. Well, we're hoping not. Obviously this is, we are obviously hoping for as much success as possible in this flight, but it is important to note a completely new pad, a completely new booster, and a completely new ship. This is probably the most that has changed with Starship in any flight since Flight 1. So the level of, there is I would say a little bit more uncertainty when it comes to this flight. So we are going to be watching very, very closely. But again, we want them to be able to succeed, not just for the success of Starship, but also Starship is crucial for the Artemis program. It is one of the 2 vehicles selected for NASA's Human Landing System, a lunar lander for Artemis. So if they can make their test milestones and make this flight successful, that does put them on a good timeline where, if something was to go wrong, that could potentially compromise the whole Artemis timeline, and we don't want to see that. Now, we should be just starting the propellant load sequence now. I believe we've crossed over 39 minutes. In fact, we're at 35. Yep. So currently we are seeing stage 1 LOX load should be starting in under a minute. In fact, and we're starting to see some of the signs that we would expect. That tower vent that you have been seeing has significantly reduced. that is an indication that they're no longer just flowing liquid oxygen up that pipe to get it nice and cold for safe propellant flow, but instead now they have continued on and are routing that liquid oxygen to the QD and should be seeing propellant flowing to the ship. It should already be flowing to the booster, and in just a few minutes we should start to see those frost lines forming on the outside of the ship and the booster.
I'm just lamenting the fact that there's going to be no cloud cover. It looks very clear there at the moment. It just remember the Falcon Heavy launch and the punching the hole through the clouds. That was awesome. So if anybody wants to
Yeah.
go back and have a look at that, the last one I co-hosted with Frank for Launch Heaven, yes, absolutely, that was amazing. That moment where I basically lost the plot.
I think both of our brains just kind of like short circuited when we saw that. It was like one of the only launches I've ever seen do that was Apollo 11. There's some
Yes.
very famous footage of Apollo 11 punching a hole in the clouds, and you could see the shockwaves rippling through that cloud
Yeah.
layer. And the previous Falcon Heavy almost perfectly replicated that. One of the coolest things that I've
Yeah,
ever
it was
seen.
very, very cool. And there's some still images that are available for Launch Heaven if you want to go and get some of that and see whether or not you want to have that on your wall. I'm looking to get one of my own and stick it up behind me, so that way, whenever I come on one of these live streams, I can say I was part of that. Yeah, speaking
Absolutely.
of shock lines and things like that, when this booster takes off, just for people who are following along at home and all that sort of stuff, and poor Joaquin, who's going to be manning the camera, those shockwaves will hit him from 33 Raptor engines, and you can literally see it distorting the atmosphere as the Starship and booster climb, because the last couple of launches that I've looked at in terms of Starship, it just fascinates me endlessly. There's a drone flying somewhere in the area that SpaceX has, and it is spectacular watching those pulse lines go through. There's 33 engines that are actually distorting the atmosphere as they go up, and that's not a little bit, you can clearly see those very, very clearly. It's fascinating watching all this sort of stuff happen. And yeah, just reflecting back on what you said earlier, Frank, this is going to leap off the pad and it's going to sprint. Just comparatively, as to others in the who've got enormous rockets of similar size, yeah, it's compared to some others, this thing is going to sprint. It'll be engines on and pretty much gone pretty quickly, because it's going to reach that max Q at around about 47 seconds, I think it is. 45 seconds, sorry. Apologies about that. But yes, that's going to be interesting. The other thing about this as well is that there's also, they've focused on reusability. That interstage hot staging ring that they had before has now been integrated. There is actually a large portion around behind the actual Starship that is for venting gases for when they actually do their hot staging and will light up. Yes, there is no more disposable staging ring that you've seen on previous flights. So that's one of the things to notice. That's all been integrated. There is a high focus on reusability and making sure that they're able to bring the whole thing back. So again, just to say this one more time, the booster will not be coming back to the tower, and they're not going to be catching the Starship either. That will land in the Indian Ocean somewhere off the west coast of Australia.
Yeah, and we are going to see some incredibly cool milestones again during the flight. Ship has a lot of test objectives this time. We are again going to be seeing the deployment of those 22 Starlink simulators, or as they've been calling them, 20 Starlink sims and 2 hotlinks. And as you were saying, SpaceX GT, will the Starlinks provide a view of the flip maneuver for the heat shield? Yes.
Ooh.
We don't know exactly what the flip is going to be. I've got my little Starship here.
Oh,
It could be a end over end flip. It could be a barbecue roll. We're not quite sure, but we do know that the Starlinks are going to get deployed out, and as they go away, as they continue following their passive path away, the Starship is going to do some sort of maneuver so the cameras on board can get high resolution imagery of the heat shield to see just what kind of condition it's in before it hits reentry. And Something this and really a lot of this flight in general reminds me increasingly of is the shuttle. The last time that we saw a vehicle do a maneuver like this, I believe, would have been STS-135. The shuttle, when it would visit the International Space Station, would do a very similar flip maneuver where, following the second space shuttle disaster, the loss of Columbia, to make sure that the heat shield was in good condition before docking to the ISS, the shuttle would do, back to my Starship because I don't have a little shuttle, would do an end over end flip, nice and slow, so that the crew on board the shuttle could take out some of those, real monster lenses that they have and get high res imagery of the heat shield to send down to NASA on the ground so that they could assess what condition is the heat shield, how much damage is there. Oh, you've got your little shuttle. There you go.
I've got a shuttle. Yeah, that's how old I am. All right, so yes, it would actually do the end over flip exactly like that. Sorry, I'm just trying to coordinate this because like it looks good for myself. However, I just got to make sure it looks good for you guys. So yes, it's actually doing the end over end flip it, so that way they could literally get to that position. Sorry, that position there. So they could actually inspect the heat shield underneath to make sure there was no damage and things like that. Obviously, without all the wheels, because this is a retractable one, and you can put it on your desk and draw it back and then go wee. Um, so yes, obviously there's a lot less wheels on it, but
Yeah. Now, if you look closely at the view we've got now down toward the aft flaps on ship, I think we have a little bit of a frost line starting to form.
ooh,
This
prop
is,
load.
yeah, this is a good indication we are well underway into prop load. Hopefully, we will get a little notification from SpaceX in a moment as far as how far along it is. But we are, the next big milestone we'll expect to see is, oh, and in fact, in other views, down at the bottom of the booster, there is a frost line forming as well. And in fact, in real time, look at that. You can actually see the frost line rising. Like, just from a couple minutes, a moment ago when I started talking here, we've seen the frost line on the ship increase, and now there is a frost line forming right in the middle, at that middle bulkhead. Boy, we are moving along incredibly quickly. And as these continue to form...
No, quick note. This is a massive, massive, massive booster. It is huge. And it will load in around about the same time frame as the normal Falcon 9. So that's how much prop they're putting on this booster when they're doing this. It is insanely quick. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just had to interrupt. That blows my mind every single time I think about it.
Absolutely. And we are seeing some amazing views from SpaceX's ground-based cameras here. A lovely view of those engines, and that's going to be one of the next big milestones in about 5 minutes. We are going to see some venting happening around the base of the vehicle, as well as more sort of on the grounds near the launch pad that you are getting a great view of as those 33 Raptor 3 engines on the first stage will begin their chill down sequence for launch. And we can see it's a little bit hidden behind me, but the prop farm is just going absolutely crazy. Those methane recondensers and subcoolers are incredibly active. This is for real. We are well into prop load. I'm brain is starting to short circuit a little bit because we're really moving.
Yeah, we really are. It's looking good. That frost line is very clear now. You can see that right then down the bottom there from the SpaceX feed of that. You can see it coming online. So there are some major flight events at this, as I said before, which is max Q at 45 seconds. It is literally going to sprint off the pad. The main engine cutoff will be around 2 minutes and 22 seconds. So that is quick. Hot staging and separation will be at 2 minutes and 24 seconds. So yeah, there's exactly a 2-second gap before there is that whole staging and separation. Booster landing attempt will be around offshore 7 minutes after the launch. So hopefully Joaquin will get some really good images of the booster coming back, at least at distance. Starship reaches space and shuts down its engines at the 8-minute mark. And Payload the deployment, those 22 mass simulators for Starlink version 2 will start at around 17 minutes. And that's where after that, at that 17-minute mark is where we'll actually start to see the images coming that'll from the final two, which payload simulators, which have cameras on board. So that way they can get a look back at Starship and see exactly how the heat shield is. Then we've got the in-space Raptor relight is at the 38-minute mark, and Starship entry doesn't start until the 48-minute mark. Final landing sequence will be 1 hour and 5 minutes after launch, with an attempted splashdown landing sequence. So again, those buoys that are out in the Indian Ocean, which is off the west coast of Australia, should actually get all that. And hopefully, with any luck, we'll get some really nice drone images that'll go along with that. And that will be a fantastic thing to see, because that's in my backyard, more or less, here in Australia.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the re-entry, we are going to be seeing a few differences in the entry profile this time. The ship has a few different experimental tiles. In the SpaceX view, you can actually see them here lining the sides of the ship, as compared in previous flights where they've been sort of right down the middle of the belly. They're now kind of on the sides, as well as having some of these test tiles up on the nose, which is significantly different. These are a mix of tiles that are sort of the metallic type actively cooled tiles, as well as some tiles that have been painted white to help simulate what the thermal dynamics that we might see if tiles were damaged. As a reminder, with the tiles, the black paint, the black coating they have on them isn't just for show, it's for a very good reason. That is, kind of crucial to how these tiles work. They accept the heat, get very hot, and they radiate that heat away. And that black color is the best color to get rid of that heat, where if tiles are damaged, they will be showing a white surface. They might not get as hot as quickly, but they also won't be able to reject that heat or release that heat as quickly. And so that's one of the things SpaceX wants to test. The other thing we're going to see is SpaceX is going to be having the ship do some more aggressive maneuvers during entry. I think, what I've heard is that we are expecting to see it do actually some turns during the entry, somewhat similar to the S turns that the shuttle would do. Wow. This view, by the way, a quick aside.
Sorry, I got distracted completely.
Yeah.
Holy hell!
This is one of those. That's one of those 50+ new cameras that we've seen, and I cannot wait to see that one when staging happens. That's going to be unbelievable.
It's going to be wild. It's going to be absolutely wild. So yeah, just as a quick aside, that Flight Radar 24, everything is clear at the moment for the launch. There are a couple of aircraft in the area. One of them is suspiciously doing circles. I would say that is there for this moment to actually capture that from the air. So there will be some. Watch out on the social media channels. There will be some spectacular footage, I think, floating around. But yeah, just want to ask you, Frank, about the actively cooled tiles. Can you explain to me what that is and what that actually means for Starship?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the actively cooled tiles, what they're going to be doing is flowing some of the propellant. I'm not sure if it's liquid oxygen or the liquid methane. My assumption would be liquid oxygen. But basically, it's a metal tile with some cooling channels behind it. And if if you have like a PC, you have a CPU cooler that runs liquid through it to pull the heat away from that CPU. Well, that's kind of what these tiles are going to be doing. As they get hotter and hotter on the outside, a little bit of that propellant will flow behind them, very similar to the cooling that happens inside of those Raptor engines. And as that propellant, gets heated up, it's pulling that heat away, trying to help prevent those tiles from melting. We don't exactly know what SpaceX's bigger plans are, but it is active cooling like that is something that has been explored in the past for Starship. And if you guys remember the last couple flights, 12 and 11, how that heat shield came in just like super orange, that was from a little bit of that metal on those tiles vaporizing and then being deposited back onto the heat shield. So it is possible that we may be seeing kind of a similar coloration, or at least some kind of heat shield discoloration after the entry. But we know that is, those are just one flavor of the variety of test tiles that Starship will be flying today.
Yeah, actively cooled tiles is going to be very, very interesting because, yeah, basically the last time I think it was Starship 11 came in and the footage that came in from the buoy, um, yeah, it looked like it had been zippered open. So that's where SpaceX had actually removed a couple of tiles to see how the Starship would react as it came in through the atmosphere. So that was completely intentional, but also at the same time, it did look like someone had put on a massive zipper on the bottom of Starship and had started opening it, and it was very, very interesting to see. But as Flight 11 came back in, it definitely worked. So whatever they were trying on Flight 11 was a-okay. It actually worked.
Absolutely. And, speaking of the tiles, one of the big differences we're seeing as well with this ship is looking at the backside of it, the leeward side compared to the windward side, which is where, that main heat shield is. We're seeing a lot more tiles on the backside of the ship. And, I would figure that is in part with the much more aggressive maneuvers we're expecting to see the ship do. Studying how the heating on the backside of the ship is going to perform during these, much more aggressive maneuvers, especially on the fins. There's a couple bands along the body of the ship, but those lower fins especially they have a lot more tiles on them than we've seen in the past. And, that can change things a number of ways. It can help reject the heat, but also those tiles and the insulation layer they need under them could cause a little more heat retention. And so SpaceX wants to see how is that heating going to compare with just the metallic surface, because the shiny metallic surface is actually very good at reflecting heat away. There's a reason that emergency space blankets are this metallic color. Not only does it reflect the heat inside and keep you nice and warm, in a hot environment it can reflect more of that heat away, where these black tiles are going to accept a lot more heat. And the question will be, versus the shiny surface that just reflects all that infrared away, will the tiles be able to emit and get rid of that heat better, or will it cause more heat retention that could maybe cause some issues for the fins, for the structures?
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. And just to point out, there is the Launch Heaven team that is down there bringing you these live stream feeds right now. This is not. There is some SpaceX we're putting in there, but also Joaquin is down there bringing us these feeds. Launch Heaven actually has people at Starbase in Texas, and they're bringing you these live feeds right now.
Absolutely. And I would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to Austin.
Oh
Head
yes,
of the, the head of the ship and the absolute madman, pressing the buttons, pulling the levers, and keeping the back end of the stream alive. He has been working overtime to keep all of this running for all y'all, so we are incredibly grateful.
Yes, we are. We're incredibly grateful, and we're also incredibly grateful because, yeah, a little bit inside baseball off camera. He actually, before we started the live stream, he said, "Really hope that I don't have a power outage." Which would be the end of the live stream altogether. But yeah, it's just he's actually battling quite a few different things at the moment. So yeah, big shout out to Austin. Cheers, man, for bringing me on board to help Frank with this co-host this live stream. And yeah, with any luck, in around about 16 minutes and 20 seconds time, we shall see this Starship launch, and it will be a spectacular thing to watch. Let's hope that we don't actually have as many call-offs as we had yesterday, as the guys had yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there for this because, I was at work in Australia. It was around about 9 a.m. when they were getting down towards the pointy end, and I had meetings, which were eventually cancelled, but that's okay.
This all could have been an email.
Yeah, things could have been an email, which is fine. But I do actually have a full-time job, believe it or not. But with that, it's still early morning here in Australia. So just to let everyone know, I am coming to you live from Australia, and it is 8:14 in the morning, 8:14 a.m. And also at the same time, just to let everyone know as well that, if you want to give us a like or subscribe on AussieNaut, which is also a YouTube channel, I will be live streaming my own rocket launch, which will be for Sunburnt Space Company. They're due to launch hopefully next month. I haven't had any updates or further information about that. but they're looking to make their first commercial launch of their liquid-fueled rocket, which is due next month. So I'll be traveling all the way down to White Cliffs in New South Wales, which is about 1,500 kilometres away from where I am, which is probably, I don't know how that is in freedom units, but yeah, that's a fairly long way for me to go to actually to bring that live stream. So yeah, if you want to go along and give me a bit of a thumbs up and a like and all that sort of stuff on my YouTube channel, that'd be appreciated. Because yeah, I'm looking to bring everyone a live stream of a rocket launch here in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. In freedom units, that's what I would call a lot. And I'll be there. I'll be watching along. I'm super excited for that. What we're seeing right now is a good visualization of what the trajectory today is going to be. As a reminder, the booster will not be coming back to the launch site for a catch. It is going to be meeting its demise in the Gulf. It's still going to go through the landing sequence as if there was sort of an imaginary tower out there over the Gulf. So it's going to do the landing burn, down select the engines, all of that, all of these things we've seen before. It's just there's no tower out there on a barge or anything. So when it shuts its engines down, it is going to have a bit of a long drop and end up with a Viking funeral in the drink. And similarly with the ship, this is not going to be recovered. However, SpaceX has stated, and they do have the launch license modifications, that if this flight is to be successful, as early as next flight, SpaceX could be attempting a ship catch. And, that would be, when that happens, that's going to be unbelievable. Now, we are starting to get down to the fast end of the countdown. 13 and a half minutes. We can see those frost lines have expanded massively on the ship and the booster. The propellant load sequence is well over halfway done. It's starting to get real. As a reminder, and we've just got a little back channel update. Weather is go, pad is go, range is green. No wayward boats, no wayward planes.
Ooh,
we are green across the board. We are trending for a launch in just 13 minutes. As a reminder, again, as we learned yesterday, Starship's count can hold at 40 seconds. And my understanding is that they can actually hold at that 40-second mark for a pretty long time. That just happens to be a stable point where, they're not in the big propellant flow or anything like that. Some points in the countdown, if you had to press pause, you would have to bring the clock back all the way before propellant load. Starship just happens to be that it can hold for quite a while at that 40-second mark. However, while that is a possibility, right now everything we have seen is pointing to a good liftoff on time at the top of the window.
And that's fantastic news that it actually it seems to be tracking towards an actual launch. And if anybody's watching the SpaceX feed at all, yeah, they seem to they're showing images. I've got it playing in the background here. Yeah, they're showing images of, seems to be all the buoys they're going to be putting into the Indian Ocean. That's interesting. Yeah, they might actually have someone out there to actually capture that. So they might have their own host. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like, like we're seeing compared with the sort of like one buoy that they've had in the past, we are seeing at least 4 buoys out there that are going to be in the Indian Ocean to catch the ship landing, and at least I believe there may be at least one out in the Gulf for the booster as well. That even compared with the ship, that is a brave buoy. When the ship lands, it makes quite an impressive fireball, quite an impressive explosion. Even being mostly drained propellant, there's still a lot of propellant vapor in there, and there is enough residual in those propellant lines to make quite a blast. So we're hoping to get to see the live views from those buoys, even if there is some connectivity issues like we've seen in the past. SpaceX always does go and release that footage in 4K. I know the Flight 12 buoy and drone landing footage was it doesn't look real. It's insane.
It's Flight 11.
Flight 11. Oh, this is 12. Wow. The Flight 11 landing footage. Well, looking in the future, this landing footage is going to be amazing.
Well done. You can see into the future. This is going to be really successful. Any other major talents you're not telling us about?
Well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, good point.
But we are just about to cross the 10-minute mark. So we are really winding up to the terminal count. The next major milestone we are going to see is at T minus 30 seconds. That is going to be the final go for launch, assuming that they don't hold at that 40-second mark. We are
Yes.
hoping they don't. As they proceed through 30 seconds, the 33 Raptor engines will start igniting at T minus 3 seconds, liftoff at 0. At just 45 seconds into flight, the ship and booster will pass through max Q, that is the maximum area of aerodynamic pressure, and just 2 minutes and 22 seconds into the flight, I guess they call it MECO, most engines cut off, because technically not all of the engines on the
I
booster
noticed
cut
that
off.
they actually call it MECO. Yeah,
Yeah.
most engines cut off. Yeah, all right.
And about 2 seconds later, we'll see hot staging and separation as the ship starts up those 6 Raptor engines. I'm so excited. This is going to be.
So anybody who's following this live stream, you're about to see two guys malfunction completely. Especially if there's anything cool that happened, because just saying that the last time we hosted a live stream together, there was the Falcon Heavy, and it literally punched a hole in the cloud layer, and we both of us two semi-professional YouTube streamers, I guess you could say, basically. Yeah, our brains ceased to function at that point, and we both started to stumble our words after that point. And I think I said something to the effect of
Yeah, I think I went like, oh. Now, as we are looking toward the future of Starship and thinking about Launch Complex 39A, where Falcon Heavy just lifted off from, we are seeing SpaceX really accelerate their pace when it comes to Starship from the Cape. Just earlier in the past week, we saw the first deluge test for the Starship launch pad out at Cape Canaveral on pad 39A. And we, through some aerial photography, have seen that they have started to dig the flame trenches for the pair of Starship pads that will be constructed at Launch Complex 37, the former East Coast home of Delta IV Heavy.
Right. So my question to you would be, how are they going to get, because everything's based at Starbase, how are they going to get their the Starship and booster up there? Are they going to fly it?
Maybe not yet.
Is it road transport? I'm assuming it's too big for road transport. Is it boats? Or is there some sort of supersized aircraft that I've missed, and they're going to do it that way?
Well, a supersized aircraft would be incredibly cool. As you correctly mentioned, the ship and the booster are way, way too big to be able to travel over roads. Fun little technical note, there's a reason that both the Atlas V and Falcon 9 rockets have a 3.75 meter diameter. That is the largest vehicle that you can have on a flatbed truck and still make it under certain overpasses. Anything larger than that has to be shipped by boat. And in the recent weeks, we have seen what appears to be the ship transport ship. That doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but we have seen the ship transport barge, similar to the Pegasus barge that NASA uses to transport the SLS center core, and historically used to transport the shuttle external tank and ULA's rocket ship as well. We are starting to see the transport hardware for ship to make its way to the Cape. It will be leaving, I believe, Port Isabel or port nearby, and it will take a nice cruise through the Gulf around the tip of Florida, and we would expect that it would come into the turn basin at Kennedy Space Center, which should be cool to see.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, now we are just crossing under 6 minutes. We're getting close.
Look at those frost lines. Look at those frost lines. Everything is almost full on that booster. It is certainly progressed a long way since we first started noticing it. It's actually, the whole thing is almost completely and totally and utterly full. It is still a few minutes away from that, and it's getting down towards the pointy end. So just keep in mind, everyone who's watching, yes, this is Starship. This is the booster version 3. and Starship, well, the whole Starship booster version 3. So there is a lot riding on this. I believe that SpaceX is going to be doing an IPO in the next few months. And part of that, the initial public offer will be, it'll be all listed. And then basically the public can join in and actually purchase shares in terms of SpaceX. But there's a lot riding on this at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if yesterday happens again. I'm not trying to jinx it or anything like that, but yes, they need to be ultra careful and ultra conservative, because Starship is actually part of NASA's return Artemis missions. Getting that, they're supposed to be doing an in-orbit docking next year. They're looking at they're looking at establishing a lunar base. SpaceX is looking at establishing a lunar base, and then eventually on to Mars from that point. That is the biggest change, and part of the IPO will also be buying into the Starlink, also Tesla, and everything else that gets bundled in there as well. So I believe it will be an eventual evaluation of around $2 trillion. So that's quite significant. So there's quite a lot riding on this at the moment. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the moon to Mars, SpaceX has very much aligned themselves with the goals of the Artemis program, returning to the moon to stay, and using a permanent lunar presence as a foothold to expand humanity's presence to Mars. This launch is crucial, not just for the IPO, but with Artemis 3 expected in the next year to do a series of proximity operations and docking tests with HLS landers from SpaceX and Blue Origin. This launch is going to be crucial for making sure that Starship is able to deliver that lunar lander to low Earth orbit to be able to participate in that demonstration, and then continue on to Artemis 4 to at least be one of the candidates for being the vehicle that will return humans to the lunar surface. Now, we are just crossing 3 minutes. As you said, there is, I think, an abundance of caution with this launch. So as a reminder, the countdown can be held at 40 seconds, and it can hold for a bit of a while there. However, at the moment, the last update we've heard is that there were no watch items. Ship, as we're seeing now, is 97% filled.
Oh, there it is. It's on the feed right now.
Prop load has almost concluded, and I think at this point they're just sort of like topping off the tanks. And in just a few minutes, we will get that final go, no go, and hopefully no holds. Hopefully we will get to see Starship V3 take flight for the first time.
Oh, sorry, my adrenaline system has kicked in, and I'm excited and nervous, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I almost feel like I'm vibrating.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So excited. This is going to be epic if it actually goes. But again, as words of caution were said, yes, absolutely, this can be held at 40-second mark, and it can actually be extended for a little while. But at the moment, what it currently looks like, with less than 2 minutes to go, it looks like it's all green. It looks like it's going to go.
Yep, and we've just got an update in the back channel that currently SpaceX is green across the board, tracking no watch items, and are on track for a liftoff of Starship in just 1 minute and 35 seconds. And as a note, you'll see a little discrepancy between our countdown clock and the SpaceX feed. SpaceX's live stream operates on a little bit more delay than ours. Our live camera will probably be just a few seconds ahead of the official SpaceX broadcast, but the countdown clock up above us at 1 minute and 15 seconds is on track. It's always like this with the terminal count. You wait and you wait and you wait, and then all of a sudden, everything happens in the blink of an eye.
And I blinked. It's happening. And a big shout out to Joaquin. I'm so jealous of you now, dude. Holy hell.
Yep.
Sorry, man. I'm so sorry. But wow. I'm just, the excitement is palpable here. And like I'm on the other side of the planet, but I'm watching this live. And I can't wait. This is going to be, I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up.
And we are coming up on that T-minus 40-second mark. We are currently waiting to see how SpaceX's, and we have a hold. Unfortunately, we do have a hold at 40 seconds. Again, SpaceX is operating out of an abundance of caution today. This has been pretty common for Starship launches, and we have had plenty of times where we have seen them clear that 40-second hold and go on to launch. Waiting to hear. Oh, and clock may be moving. I don't know if I should trust it.
I don't
Okay,
know
clock
either.
is moving. 23 seconds.
Okay.
Less than 20 seconds. The next thing you'll see will be a big pair of vents coming up next to the ship. Deluge. We have deluge.
Deluge. We're at deluge.
Waiting for engine startup.
Here we go.
Ignition.
Oh!
Liftoff.
Stop. Sorry, brain is in full malfunction.
Look at that pad avoid maneuver. It
Oh.
is leaning over there.
Oh, look at it go.
Wow.
Go. Oh, a little bit of a cloud layer.
Yep. We have 33 good engines on the first stage.
Look at that cone. Oh, look at that tracking.
Wow. Oh.
Oh. Oh. Go.
Oh.
Waiting for the vapor cone.
What a view. 45 seconds. We should be passing through max Q just about now.
Oh, it's gone through a bit of a cloud layer.
Yep. Hopefully it'll clear these clouds in a moment. There it is. Booster and ship are nominal. Again, 33 good engines. The vehicle is about as happy as it gets right now. Seeing some
it's quite successful. There it goes.
Yeah, look at that. 33 happy Raptor 3 engines flying for the first time. Incredible.
That's jeez. Ah.
Wow. I'm like, my hands are like shaking.
Yeah, I started vibrating a little while ago and I just can't stop. It's going,
Yeah.
it's going, it's going.
It is going. We are underway. Leaning,
Sorry,
we are
I
seeing
keep forgetting.
we are seeing the ship continue to pitch over, and
Yes.
we should be coming up to staging a little in a moment.
It'll almost be at staging.
Yeah, we are seeing a little bit of a lean there, but I think that's probably normal. A few puffs from the attitude control system, from the RCS.
There's a live stream. There's a live view from the ground.
Joaquin, yeah, look at that. Joaquin still got it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. And now in just about 10 seconds, we should see Miko followed by hot staging.
Okay, there is no hot stage. Just as a reminder, there is no hot staging ring. It's all been integrated and done away with. So we should see venting it straight out the side between Starship and the booster.
Yep. Now what we should be seeing is those three vacuum optimized engines will start up first, followed by the sea level engines.
Yes.
And it looks like, based on the telemetry, it looks like we have 6 good engines on the ship, and they're start up.
Yes.
And staging.
Staging.
Hot
complete.
stage. The booster is now on its way to perform a landing. Looks like it has lost a few engines on staging. That doesn't look quite ideal.
No, that's not ideal at all. No, they're cut off. So it might have been a delay in telemetry.
Could have, absolutely. But we are still seeing 6 good engines on the ship as it continues on its way to a sub-orbital trajectory. We'll make that 5 engines. We have seen an RVAC appears to no longer be running, but the other engines do still appear to be performing nominally. And we are seeing the ship the booster perform its flip maneuver before it comes into the atmosphere. Avionics and telemetry are still nominal for the ship, despite the 1 engine out.
The ship is operating very nominally. It doesn't seem to have lost any power at all. It seems to be increasing with speed, and it doesn't seem to have noticed that it's lost a vacuum optimized engine.
Yep, that's one of the reasons that the ship and the booster have so many engines is an engine out capability. In the event of something like this where they lose an engine, there is enough reserve performance across the other engines on the vehicle to still be able to make the necessary objectives. The booster is in a pretty significant role, and we are hoping in a few moments we are seeing that the booster has not completed its boost back burn.
No.
Um,
Are we?
it
Are
looks
they about
like
to use the
Yeah,
booster?
it looks like the booster is going to be coming in on a ballistic trajectory. It will not be likely completing its planned landing, and it does appear that it has lost attitude control and is just spiraling passively before it hits the atmosphere. It should be quite an interesting show to see what happens to it as it starts to run into the atmosphere. Looks like there may be a little bit of a fire somewhere on the booster.
Yep.
However, the ship still appears to have rock solid attitude control and is pushing toward hopefully a mostly nominal seco.
Yeah. Booster
You
is.
can see now you can see the
I think the
clouds
booster is.
starting to get
Yep.
bigger on the booster
Yeah,
as it
this is
is
going to be very interesting to see whether or not SpaceX actually remains with the booster in the footage or cuts out. But yes, this will be spectacular either way.
yeah.
It is definitely heading back into the atmosphere at this point, but it is an uncontrolled roll at this point. Whoa! Now it's pitching
It has stable.
quite
It's
heavily.
Yeah. It appears to be sort of stabilizing the
Yes,
with the
now it is.
strakes and all the weight from those engines down at the bottom. It is passive. The booster is passively stable in this attitude, kind of like a giant lawn dart. It will.
Oh, oh,
Ooh,
it's
that's
stabilized.
yeah. There's some kind of light. That is a heck of a vapor cone.
That is a
Uh,
hell of a view.
it is moving. It appears that there has been some sort of a fire on the booster as it is entering. May have attempted to start an engine.
Yep,
Telemetry has frozen,
we're back on
and
Starship, which seems to be
it
okay.
looks like it managed to get one engine lit before its Viking funeral demise in the Gulf. Now we are still continuing to track a relatively nominal path with the ship. Even, despite losing one engine, it is continuing on a nominal trajectory. Look at the bluing and the discoloration from the
No.
heat right there by the S39. That's awesome. Looks
But
beautiful.
if you notice the S39 just on the top there, away from the black of the heat shield, you notice there's a protrusion that's sticking out of the top. That protrusion at the top is actually there for in-orbit refueling at some point, where SpaceX will actually launch a tanker unit and hook it up to this to do in-orbit refueling. It's on there at the moment because this is the final design. I believe there might be a few tweaks to the booster by the look of it, as they seem to have lost the control of that at the last moment.
Yep.
But yes, this is one of the finalized designs for the actual Starship, which includes in-orbit refueling.
Now we are seeing those engines that looks a little bit toasty. I'll be quite honest
That
here.
does look very toasty.
That's we have seen hot spots on those Raptor vacuum engines in previous flights. We are hoping that the ship will make it to a successful SECO, and it should be in just a few moments. It may have had to throttle up a little bit extra and provide a little extra thrust from those remaining engines because of the single engine out. However, it does appear that it is still on a nominal trajectory, and we should, in just a few seconds, be seeing cutoff of those ship engines. It is possible that they may run just a few seconds extra to make up for the lost performance, but we are waiting to see that engine shut down.
Yes, it is well and the Starship is now well and truly in space. It has passed the Kármán line, which is the internationally recognized boundary for space, which is around about 100 kilometers. It is falling rather rapidly, though, which is a little bit of a concern. But the speed
Yes.
the speed is actually keeping it up there. So it's basically it's aiming for the horizon and trying to miss. So
And
which
we
is
are
actually how orbit
y-
works.
it may be nosing up a little bit to try to just push altitude up. We are seeing some changes in the ship's attitude as those 5 engines are still running, trying to make up for the lost performance. Hoping to see shutdown in a few moments, but we are continuing to monitor the situation closely.
It's got another. I think it's got another 3 minutes of burn.
And
No,
it
nope,
appears that we
shutdown.
have had shutdown. We
Now actually
are,
traveling at around about 26,000 kilometers per hour,
yeah,
which is, I think, around about Mach 25 for anybody who's playing along at home.
yep. That is around the speed that we would expect to see. We are still waiting to hear from SpaceX on whether this was a nominal trajectory. Obviously, with the burn being extended and the lower thrust, the ship's had to work a little bit harder to get itself to orbit. We will just see. We will see where these milestones continue to fall as the flight progresses. The good news is that they have reached space, and it appears that the ship has stable attitude control. We are seeing those fins moving as the flight progresses. And just got confirmation we do have a nominal trajectory. So,
Excellent.
despite the engines out and the few little extra difficulties getting to space, the ship has showed really an incredible amount of resilience and has made it to its nominal trajectory. That
Look,
was
even
exciting.
though whether or not that was planned or not planned, it is still very exciting and proving the capability of Starship. That even with a failed vacuum engine that was out, it still actually managed to make orbit with a few more seconds or minute worth of extra burn. So it is actually sitting in a stabilized orbit right now, which is sitting at around about Mach 25 or 26,000 kilometers per hour. So yes, this actually proves a lot of the capability of Starship, especially designed for S-39.
That's right. That's right. And now we are expecting in about 6 minutes, right around the T plus 17-minute mark, we are expecting to see that payload deploy demonstration where the ship will open the Pez dispenser and go through what is supposed to be, yeah, yeah, what should be a much faster deployment sequence. SpaceX has confirmed that they've significantly reworked the Starlink deployment system on Starship. It should operate quite a bit faster, and hopefully we'll be able to get live views from those 2 hotlinks, those last 2 Starlink simulators with cameras on board that will be able to provide a live view of ship in orbit as it performs a flip maneuver to get inspection of the heat shield. I'm beyond excited to see that.
And just look at those views that it's coming in right now of the Earth and the shadows from the clouds on the surface of the ocean there. That's absolutely stunning. It's just absolute. It's amazing to see this and to see it live as well because yeah, words cannot describe how amazing this is just to see this sort of stuff and they're transmitting it live so that way everyone can enjoy it from no matter where you are, whether you're in the United States or around the other side of the planet, watching from Australia. So yes, this is absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is beautiful.
Really beautiful.
We are expecting to see Starship pass through orbital nighttime. You can see the Earth down there is starting to get a little bit darker, so it will be crossing over the Terminator. However, we're hoping that there will be some form of illumination, whether it's from the sun or I don't know, maybe some big spotlights on the Starlink simulators. Hoping to have some kind of good illumination to be able to see that heat shield. It is possible that maybe they can have enough view once they enter sunlight again, but I'm incredibly excited to see that. And ship appears to still be holding a good attitude on a nominal trajectory as we head toward that payload deployment.
The payload deployment will happen at around about 17 minutes. There might be a slight delay because the Starship was taking a little bit of extra time to make sure that it was in a stable orbit, or sorry, sub-orbit. And yeah, it's not actually in orbit, it's in the sub-orbit. So they're just making sure that happens. So there might be a slight delay. It's supposed to be scheduled for around about the 17-minute mark that those will be deployed. Now, yes, hopefully they'll, as they cross the Terminator, it will enter into darkness. Hopefully they've thought about that. Well, they should have thought about that, the SpaceX, that if they're in darkness and they need to inspect a heat shield, that at least there should be some sort of illumination, unless, of course, they wait to get to the other side of the planet to do those final inspections. But yes, the last two Starlink satellites or simulators that are on there will have cameras on them, so that way they can actually look back at Starship as it's traveling around to complete those inspections of the heat shield. So those images are going to be absolutely spectacular, as you said. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. It's going to be super thrilling to see. Right now, we're seeing a lot of activity from the reaction control thrusters. I think one of the interesting changes to the V3 ship that's kind of flown under the radar is the attitude control that's done by a lot of the boil off and the venting. Instead of just being little vent ports around the ship, they've actually really modeled them into proper reaction control thrusters with, actual converging, diverging nozzles. It looks, much more similar to the kind of reaction control thrusters we see on a lot of other spacecraft compared with, maybe the way that it was done on previous versions.
With earlier versions.
Yeah.
Let's just say the earlier versions, they put a little bit more work into this, so that way they actually look like the most appropriate thing. Again, just coming back and saying about the protrusions you can see just above the S39 there, those parts sticking out are there for on-orbit refueling. For that way, when Starship actually starts heading to a lunar mission or for a Mars mission, that they will send up a tank, so which will be another Starship. It will be loaded with nothing but fuel to do on-orbit refueling, and that's at a future stage. Whether or not that's in Starship 13 or Starship Flight 14, we yet to find out. With the underperformance or the loss of the booster, unplanned loss of the booster. Whether or not that was planned or not, I would suspect there might be a few more changes to the booster to come to make sure that there's that inbuilt reliability. But at least with this design of S39, it looks like it is a solid design. The only downside to all of that was the loss of a vacuum-optimized Raptor engine on its way to orbit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and one of the sort of unexpected test objectives that we're seeing happen here is this is the first time we've seen ship demonstrate its engine out capability successfully. This does show that there's enough reserve performance in those engines that if they lose one, they can burn a little bit longer, push those engines a little bit harder. Although I really don't know how much more they can push them. They are on the bleeding edge of the laws of physics with those Raptor 3s, and even losing a vacuum engine, they can still make it to a nominal orbit. We are hoping that they'll still have the propellant reserves to be able to conduct a good landing. However, for the moment, we are looking to see this payload deploy sequence start in just a few seconds. Oh, and we are going to see the light change very rapidly.
Yes.
We are coming close to the Terminator. Look at that beautiful color.
Those colors are stunning.
Wow. Yeah, the Terminator is one of the most beautiful things. As the sun gets lower and lower to the limb of the Earth, it filters through the atmosphere and just casts these beautiful golden colors all over everything up in space.
Oh, here we go.
And there we go.
I just remember, for those people who are doubting any of this, yes, the CGI guys are really working overtime with these graphics.
Yeah, and the Pez dispenser door is open.
Oh,
we've got a nice view of it there. Door's open, and we are waiting to see those simulators start ejecting.
That's nuts. I'm sorry, that's nuts. A door that opens into space. I mean, yes, look, I know the space shuttle had doors and they were bigger and whatever else, but this is a private company.
Yeah, it is astonishing. It's great to see, again, to the iterative design approach that, Pez dispenser door didn't always play so nicely. But through, iterations, we have seen them improve the door, improve the payload deploy mechanism. And we are just eagerly awaiting seeing this whole thing come to life and start sending these Starlink simulators out into their suborbital cruise.
And the reason why it's called a Pez dispenser is literally it looks like a Pez dispenser. It will actually send them out, like shuffle them straight out, and they'll go out one after the other. There might be a bit of a delay between the Starlink simulators, because making sure there's an adequate distance between them, they're not crashing into each other. But yes, it is literally like an inverted Pez dispenser.
And we are just waiting to see motion. And there we go. We have motion on the payload deploy mechanism. And we should be seeing that first satellite or dummy satellite be deployed in just a few moments.
Oh, moving away. Here we go.
And it appears, there it is. There it goes.
Oh, we just get to see it come out.
Yeah. That is deployment. There we are. That's deployment of
And
the
that
first.
is smooth.
Yeah.
Compared to the earlier versions of that was smooth.
Yeah, that first version was, dare I say, a little bit clunky. It had a lot of difficulty moving. This is smooth, controlled. It's clear seeing the work that has been put into the payload deploy mechanism here. And it is quicker as well. It is definitely getting these satellites out noticeably quicker than the previous version. Now, based on the attitude of the ship, you can see down at well, actually, we can't quite see it because I'm covering it. But the Starship is flying belly first in orbit, deploying these Starlink satellites. Use my simulator here. So it's flying belly first this way, and it is sending these Starlink dummies out behind it as it continues along its suborbital path toward a eventual landing in the Indian Ocean.
So you just got to remember as well that this is all happening in orbit, so there is no gravity, and this all has to be pushed and sequenced properly. So that way the Starlink simulators come out in order. So that yes, there's no gravity assist with any of this. It looks like it's just easy to do, but no, it actually has to be forced into these particular positions to get it out the door. And there goes the third one. There are 22 of these, and hopefully with any luck, the last two will. Oh, that's a good top-down view.
Nice.
With the last two will actually have cameras for that look back. Whether or not we actually get any images from those last two payloads to have a look back, that'll be very interesting. And I'm excited for it if we get it, but it's okay if we don't.
Yeah, I'm. Whether or not we get those views live, we will see it at some point. I am definitely hoping that SpaceX can get us the live feed from those Starlink simulators as they are deployed and make their way drifting away from the ship, and as ship re-enters the sunlight before its entry, we are hoping that those will be able to get good images of the heat shield, because as a reminder, the main reason that those last two dummy Starlink simulators have these cameras on board is to take high resolution. I'm getting all turned around here. To get high resolution imagery of Starship's heat shield to assess it for any kind of damage and just generally see what condition it's in before starting the entry, so that if they perhaps see anything unexpected during the entry, they can look at that imagery and say, okay, well, we had a damaged tile here or a missing tile here, and that maybe aligns or maybe doesn't align with the heating that we saw.
Yeah, it's always interesting that instruments and everything can only tell you so much, and eventually humans, because of how we operate, we need to eyeball it. That's exactly why there's cameras on those last two Starlink simulators, is we need to eyeball it to see exactly what the heat shield looks like, rather than just relying on the data. So because, again, visual creatures will be able to pick up a lot more detail if we're able to see exactly what it is. And yes, hopefully with any luck, SpaceX will be able to give us those images live. If not, then SpaceX, if you follow them on X, then you will see that they'll probably release those images there.
Absolutely, absolutely. SpaceX has a long history of, if they can't bring you the view live, and even if they do, they tend to put out the high-res footage either on their website or on X. And I am, I'm fully expecting this to be some of the most amazing imagery that we have seen from from a program that has already provided some of the most unbelievable imagery from any spaceflight venture, really in history. The only thing that even comes close is the shuttle, but the shuttle
Oh,
was
even that was limited. I'm
yeah,
sorry, but that was
it
limited.
was this the shuttle was so limited. You would get these interesting views afterward, but the ability to bring it live is just something that's so totally unique. Um, I every time seeing entry just completely blows my mind. The
Well,
fact that
just
they can get that footage during entry is unbelievable.
well, just for comparison, you guys, at least in the United States, have at least with the shuttle launch, you'd get a live view and all that sort of stuff on some sort of small channel that, or even NASA would be doing that themselves on launch days and things like that. Here in Australia, we'd get a 30-second summary if we were
Oh,
lucky.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
was
that was
killer.
back in the days of public access NASA TV when NASA TV wasn't a 24/7 YouTube stream; it was a actual TV channel.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It was an actual TV channel, and for a space nut like myself, it just I wanted to see it all, and yeah, and the commercial channels here in Australia, they would do nothing more than a 30-second overview if you were lucky, with
Yeah,
some cool launch images, and then basically the shuttle on orbit, and that'd be it. And
still
it
better
was
than
so great.
the Lockheed Martin Venture Star webcam. That would be a still image that would update like once every 30 seconds.
That was even worse.
For those who know, yeah,
Yeah.
during the Venture Star program, there was a early webcam, but it's amazing how far everything has come.
All right. Looks like we're coming down to the last couple of Starlink simulators. We've lost the image, the live image at the moment. That's because I would say Starship is getting towards my side of the planet, which is here in Australia. So it's getting more towards the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, from the globe that is hidden beneath me, we can see that it is actually almost just off the tip of probably making a nice little pass by French Guiana and the Kourou spaceport that ESA uses.
Yes.
Now we are coming up to these last two hot links. Really hoping we get a live camera from them.
So that should be around about that should be the 20th going out. So 21 and 22 should have those live camera feeds.
Yep.
Oh, let's hope. Here we go. They're lining up.
And in fact, you can
Um,
actually see a little. Looks like you can see a little dish on that one.
yes.
So yeah, these last two, we can see that they
Mm.
are not just not just the dumb links simulators.
All right, I'm just gonna watch this.
Yeah, we have heard that whether or not the SpaceX is confirmed that whether or not they get the live view, they obviously will be sharing the views from these. I think if they didn't share it, everyone would riot.
I think they would too. All right. Well, that's 21.
Yeah,
That's
I
one that's
believe
supposed
so.
to have the camera on it, and 22. All right. So it'll take a few minutes, a minute or two, for actually to get out to the right level to actually fully inspect the heat shield. It should be ready. Starship should almost be ready to cross over the Terminator again, with any luck, and hopefully we'll get a full sunlight lit view of Starship,
Yeah,
providing the simulators are out far enough to look back at Starship as it's transiting through orbit.
it looks like they're deploying them two at a time, actually. And so
It does.
there goes the first Dodger Dog. The first hot link
You're
is
right.
out in space.
You're right. I was wrong. That was 21, and this should be 22.
Yep, we are just waiting to see this last one go. And there it is. It's
There it is.
moving. And we are seeing that last Dodger Dog, that last hot link deploy. Oh, and look at that.
Oh, oh,
Suddenly, let there be light. My goodness. What
and
timing.
there was. Wow. Is that
I,
actually the sun, or is that
I don't know if that's the sun or a spotlight, but it's bright.
if that's a spotlight? That's a hell of a spotlight. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be inspecting a heat shield. Why not?
Yeah, yeah. Now we should see the door close, and there we go. The door is closing, and in just a few moments, Starship should begin its end over. We think it's an end over end, not sure, but should start its end over end move to let those Dodger Dog satellites have a great view to inspect that heat shield again. Hoping we will get a live view of that.
And look at that. So obviously it's been successful because SpaceX team is celebrating hard.
Yeah, and
Looks like it's meeting all its milestones.
yeah, and I mean they should absolutely be celebrating. This is a huge milestone. The V3 team and the ground link, the ground systems and Pad 2 team should be celebrating.
Hang on, I'm just going to make a quick note here. Look at all of us beardo weirdos.
Yeah, yeah.
Me, myself, yourself, and the guy from SpaceX. There's three
Yep.
of us beardo
Yep.
weirdos.
Even even that guy in the background,
Yes.
looking at the camera there. We are the beard game in the
I didn't
space
even
business
notice.
is strong.
Yes. The beard is strong. Oh, look at that.
Ship is
Oh.
moving those flaps. I would expect that that might be part of how they are going to be setting themselves up for inspection, and we can see the light is starting to shift a little bit. Can't quite see the attitude indicator because I'm blocking it, but it does look like ship is going to do sort of a pirouette to let those satellites inspect the heat shield. And in fact, in just a moment, I think that is one of those Dodger dogs reflecting the sunlight right there. So hoping to get a live view from them, but we will, one way or another, we will see the footage. And that heat shield inspection is ongoing right now as Starship continues to move its flaps. That's really interesting. Huh.
Maybe the inspection's already happened.
Or maybe is ongoing. It might be that it is moving the flaps through different positions to, just help collect imagery, help see different, get better light on different areas of those tiles. Certainly
is that a spotlight or is that the sun?
I'm not sure. I think it's the sun because it's so bright. It would be quite difficult to have a spotlight be that bright.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's the sun, but if the ground in the next few minutes doesn't start to get light, then maybe it is, but we'll find out. You can see ice falling away from the ship as always, not UFOs, not mice hanging on.
Just frozen propellant as there always is.
Yep, frozen propellant and just some of that ice that's still hanging on to the outside of the ship. Can see a few RCS pulses, but it looks like the ship is mostly stabilizing its attitude now after that heat shield inspection. I can't wait to get those views. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get the live views of that from SpaceX. But I have no doubt that they will be. It looks like it might actually still be turning a little bit.
It is.
It's still rotating. But I have no doubt they'll release that footage in probably glorious 4K, and that should be just unbelievable to see.
So the next major milestone is re-entry, starting at around about 48 minutes. Now, just to remind everyone, there is some buoys in the Indian Ocean, which is just off the west coast of Australia. There's around about 4 of them, and SpaceX was showing earlier that the deployment of those, and it seems like there might be one of a SpaceX ship in the area. So we might get some very interesting new live footage as Starship starts to come back in to land in the Indian Ocean. So they put out the buoys in a particular spots because, as it always, SpaceX knows roughly where everything should land. It's sometimes down to a couple of millimeters, sometimes not, but they should have a really, really good idea of exactly where Starship will land. And so therefore they've put out buoys, and they've also, at the same time, they have a ship in the area. So there may actually be some drones as well, giving us some really good aerial shots.
Yeah. Now, just as a quick aside, I don't want to step on you here, but there is actually, it does appear there is one more milestone in between that is going to be the on orbit, well, on suborbit, the in space Raptor relight demonstration.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
We are still expecting to see the ship attempt to relight one of those 3 sea level Raptor 3 engines. We are waiting to see that in just, let's see, we're at 34 minutes, so we're expecting to see that demonstration take place in about 4 minutes. That would be, I think that would be one of the biggest achievements of this flight, not just making it to suborbit, but to be able to relight a Raptor 3 on orbit on its first flight, because the ignition system, without getting into the weeds, the ignition system for Raptor 3 has changed a little bit.
Yes.
They're using a very unconventional sort of way to ignite these that kind of relies on how, I don't want to say explodey, but how sensitive a mixture of methane and oxygen is. For those turbo nerds, if you've ever read Ignition by John D. Clark, fantastic book on the early days of liquid propulsion. There was a product rep who thought he would make a super high energy monopropellant from a mixture of liquid oxygen and liquid methane. And, if that sounds like a bad idea, you probably are not wrong about that. JPL couldn't figure out how he had not caused himself serious injury. When they tested it in the lab, in a test tube, they found that they could cause it to detonate just by shining a desk lamp on it. So that is to say that the startup and the propellant combination is very sensitive. You can do some things to just make it kind of light itself, but it also is one of the big challenges that SpaceX and Blue Origin have had to deal with, is just having such a sensitive propellant mix. Now, we are starting to see, as we're crossing 160 kilometers, we are starting to see a little bit of that attitude control gas start to ionize a little bit. By the time we hit about 140 kilometers, we will see, we'll continue to see that, and at about 70 to, by 70 kilometers, we're going to be well in it. By about 130 kilometers, we are going to see those shock waves and that intense super hot plasma starting to form on the ship as it begins its reentry sequence at about T plus 48 minutes. Still waiting about 2 minutes out for that Raptor relight demonstration, however.
Again, much like the Starlink simulator deployment, it might be about a minute or two behind, just because they had to get a little bit of extra boost performance because of the vacuum optimized Raptor engine that was out on launch. So yeah, they might need to, that might be extended out by a minute or two. So yes, if it's a little bit later than exactly the 38 minutes, that's possibly intentional.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, they'll be doing the altitude before, as they were deploying the Starlink simulators, was around about 190 kilometers. They're down about 40 kilometers now. So I'm assuming they're looking to use the Raptor engines to do a reboost to see whether or not that'll actually be able to see whether or not that's possible on Starship 39.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we'll look at closely are going to be the speed and altitude combinations as Starship. Oh, hang on. Wait just a moment. I think SpaceX has a treat for us here.
Oh, what's that?
I think this is the view from those hot links. Oh, dude.
Oh, dude. There's the refuel point.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, that is just unbelievable.
Sorry.
It looks like that may have actually. Oh, and there's the sun.
Oh. That's
wow.
the door closing. This must be a replay.
Yeah, it looks like these may actually have been. These may have been spotlights from the dumb links or the hot links. Wow.
Oh.
Unbelievable. So that wasn't the sun. That was just some incredibly strong lights. Yeah, put this on replay, please, SpaceX. Again.
Again and again and again. They heard us.
Yeah, they did. Wow. That's incredible. Those docking ports remind me a lot of the Apollo docking ports.
Look at that refuel point. Look at that.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see. Wow. And you can see a little bit of on the downcomer there, the protrusion. You can see a little bit of damage to the tiles on
Yeah.
that. And wait for the light to click back on. Wow.
Look at that.
Just
That is
unbelievable.
spectacular. That door closing is just nuts.
Yeah. Those
So
two
that
pads of
what spotlights?
yeah, those are those are
That's
incredible.
that's nuts.
Wow.
Well, I actually, if you're going to be doing your inspection in around about what a 5 minute time frame, you can, if you got lithium ions on board, you can pretty much waste the whole thing. Especially if you can get it all done in a 5 minute time frame.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
it doesn't matter. It's just going to return. It would come screaming back through the atmosphere anyway and burn up on reentry. So it doesn't
Yep.
matter.
Yeah, we are waiting to see if SpaceX is going to conduct that Raptor relight. We would have expected it to happen about 2 minutes ago. Again, some of these milestones have been happening a few minutes behind, but we are starting to see a lot more plasma forming from the reaction control jets, and we are seeing the
Yep.
fins folding back.
Mhm.
As a reminder, this is going to be a bit more of an aggressive entry. Um, the Yep, it sounds like they have skipped the Raptor relight demo. Um,
Well, they're now down to
the
134 kilometers, so they're well and truly on their way down.
Yep.
And we're about to see some really interesting plasma views as Starship starts to come back through the upper limits of the atmosphere, starting to coming in at Mark 25. It is going, much like some of the earlier Starship missions, it is going to provide some very spectacular views, especially since, again, there are 50 cameras on this, whether or not that was on the booster and Starship combined. We're not quite sure, but yes, they are still going with the traditional camera on the flaps, so that way they're bringing us those live view via Starlink, which is currently in orbit, not the dummy ones, the current ones that are in orbit.
Yep. Starship is just so big that it can, and the beam forming on the Starlink is so tight that they can just kind of shoot the gap out the back of the plasma. And we are definitely starting to see things starting to warm up a little bit.
Oh,
The entry,
this always gets me every time.
yeah,
Every
it is
time.
incredible. We are rapidly approaching entry interface. This is about what we've seen in the past as far as the timeline goes, although it wouldn't shock me to see if entry interface maybe begins a minute or two early, just based on the where all the timeline events have been. As a reminder, ship is going to be extending its flaps and possibly attempting a few banking maneuvers during this entry. They really, really want to put a lot of stress on that heat shield and on those flaps. And we have heard confirmation that SpaceX is going to be attempting a landing burn despite skipping the Raptor relight. Yep, and now there we go. We have consistent plasma starting to build up, about 120 kilometers, 42 minutes. This is seeming to be relatively on track with previous flights. I can't wait to see those shock waves, just like see that boundary layer rejection and those shock
Yeah.
waves forming along the fins.
Unreal.
I'm going to be very curious to see as they start to extend those fins more and put a lot more stress on them to see how the heat shield holds up, because we have seen burn throughs at the junction between the fins and the actual body of the ship in the past. But whether or not that happens, we will be finding out in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yep. And just to let everyone know, the guys who are at Launch Heaven, guys who were at the Starship launch, Joaquin and Matthew T, yes, they have already posted some spectacular photos on X. So if you want to go and look at Astro Matthew T, follow along for him there. You'll see some absolutely gorgeous images of Starship as it was taking off. And now you'll get to see some absolutely gorgeous images of it coming back in from its suborbital trajectory.
Yeah, Joaquin has a few up as well that
He
are,
does?
yeah,
Oh, hang on.
yeah,
Sorry. That's just me.
stunning.
I'm a space fan. I'm just going to be going to have a look. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely
I'm off.
stunning views of liftoff as we are starting to see that plasma along the belly and the fins intensify. It does look like we are reaching entry interface at this point. We'll wait to hear confirmation for when they officially say it, but I would say that this has started entry at this point. We would
Yes, it
expect
has.
peak heating. Looks like some venting from the aft end of the ship, possibly. Um, we would expect to see the peak heating somewhere in the range of 50 to 70 kilometers. So at 105, there is still a long way to go before before Starship really feels the heat. And we will be watching closely to see how Ship 39 holds up.
Yes, again, coming in at around about Mark 25 at this point. That's 26,710 kilometers an hour. It is still quite a rapid pace at this moment, but once it actually starts to hit the atmosphere, you'll see that speed drop quite considerably. And once it gets to the thicker level of the atmosphere as it comes down, just before landing, it'll slow right down. And then we'll get those maneuvers, and we'll also get that belly flop, not belly flop, but that belly flop as it comes through the cloud layer, and then basically it should do the upward flip to point its engines to try and do the landing.
Yeah, absolutely. Continuing to see this interesting venting coming off the rear end of the ship as we've got a great view of one of those aft flaps. Again, not entirely sure, what the nature of that is. There are sort of an expanded and intensified set of attitude control jets down at basically at the, I've got my simulator here again, basically right at the junction between the fins and the actual body of the ship. So it is possible that could be those. We just don't really know, so I don't want to speculate too much on what we're seeing. And we should, as we are approaching 90 kilometers, we should start to see that more intense plasma forming, making those nice, clear very clearly defined shock waves as Starship hits the atmosphere.
So this is in a nose up position as Starship starts to come back in through the atmosphere. So the nose is actually pointing upwards. It seems to be at around about a 45-degree angle. And that's what you're seeing there. So the plasma entry to begin with will be first around the rear of the ship, which is what we're seeing here.
Yep, and now crossing 90 kilometers, we are absolutely in entry interface, hoping to see a few more of those views from around Starship. And we would expect to see, again, those clearly defined shock waves with the plasma right on cue. There we go.
Right, it is. There it is.
And we can see those nice round shock waves getting kicked off from the fins, and that just gets more and more clear. As someone who's studying aerospace and has an interest in hypersonics, this is absolutely one of the coolest things to see. And we're still seeing the ship moving. We are seeing, in fact, oh, look at that. There's one of those side. That was one of those vents on the side. I'll be very curious to see if we start seeing any kind of heating on the edges of the fins, on the inside junction, because we are definitely in the heat now. Ship 39 is well into entry, but again, there's about a 20-kilometer range from 50 to 70 kilometers where it will be experiencing the highest heating, which is followed shortly after by a much more intense period of G-loading and aerodynamic forces. Entry is brutal. It's not just the heat, but if your structures are already weakened by heating, and then you go into a more serious entry pulling 2 or 3 Gs, it can break a vehicle up very quickly. So it's been incredible seeing how resilient the ship has been through all of its entries. If we look at the belly there, I believe we are starting to see those tiles glowing a little bit along the edge of the really entry kind of belly plasma facing side.
Mm. And as you can see, the speed is now starting to drop as it starts to reach the more of atmospheric drag as it's starting to come down to 75 kilometers.
Yep.
It is starting to really slow down. The speed will again drop really rapidly when it reaches maximum re-entry, which is that heating phase that you were saying there before. and the speed will actually drop quite significantly at that particular point because of that atmospheric drag and that atmospheric reentry.
Yeah, not one of those things that we're seeing with the cameras. Even though the feed is holding pretty well,
It
um,
is.
cameras don't like heat, and when
I'd like
you
to know where they're
are
hiding these cameras because these are spectacular images and they're not
ab-
impacted.
absolutely, and some cameras can see a little bit into the infrared, like the front-facing camera on an iPhone. So
Yep.
when you're going through an entry and have this enormous amount of infrared, this heat coming off the vehicle, it can make those cameras start to do some weird things, which I think is probably what we are seeing on the belly. It also looks like at the if we see those strakes again, there we go. We can
Yep.
on those landing points start to see a little bit of smoke coming off of it. Definitely looks like that windward side is getting pretty toasty.
Yeah, and it's now starting to heat that, going to the maximum amount of heating. It is coming through the lower parts of the atmosphere. As you can see, the speed is now dropping.
Yeah, that speed is dropping rapidly as we go through the area of peak heating. As another indication, we can see the steel of Starship skin starting to discolor. Um, Now we are hearing from SpaceX that even beyond the planned more aggressive entry maneuvers, this may be a little bit of a hotter reentry, just based on the trajectory that they're on, and we are expecting to see them possibly extending those fins a little bit further than they have in the past to just try and stress the vehicle as much as they think it can reasonably take.
It'll also be interesting to see from these live views whether or not they actually have any breakthrough from around the edges of the flaps as they've had on previous flights. I think it was flight 10 or 9. There was one of them where they actually had significant breakthrough of atmospheric reentry, and the despite all of that and the flaps looking like they had gone through the large destructive phase, it still managed to land quite successfully anyway, despite all of that. So this particular design for Starship is the right one, and these type of maneuvers are the right ones because Starship, even though they had a lot of destruction on the previous flaps and things, it still managed to land. It still managed to land, which I was so surprised about watching that live.
Oh my god, yeah, it seeing as those fins burned through, seeing the plasma intrude into the actual body of the fins and start to
Yeah.
illuminate all those structures. I mean, it was super cool, kind of a window into like how the fins are actually built.
Yes.
But I genuinely could not believe that they landed that with the fins, I mean, practically hanging on by a
I
thread.
know.
It,
I
it,
know.
it
I think I was doing a live stream from my own channel at that particular point and went, oh, it's gone.
yeah, I
I
thought
was
it was, I
wrong.
thought it was gone.
Happily wrong.
I thought they had lost it for sure. We can see on the leading point of the aft fin there a lot of glowing. That is, that's sort of a big knob sticking off of the heat shield. So naturally, that point is going to accumulate a lot more heat than maybe the rest of the belly. And accordingly, we're seeing it glow significantly as we see what I think is a vent coming off the side of the ship there, right at that point,
Yes,
and
that was the
yeah,
vent.
disappeared. So
And it's still coming in at the 45-degree angle, so the majority of the heating will be towards the engines or the aft of the ship. So that way they get able to distribute the heat load as it comes in. I would say there's a lot more protections around the engines than there is to the rest of the ship. So that's why they decided to come in at that angle, because also the 45-degree angle makes for an optimal entry.
yeah, absolutely. And one of the interesting things with those fins is that as it starts to get more aerodynamic control during the entry here, Starship can change those, move those fins around, and it can lean in or out of the entry, the plasma, to help even that heating out across the heat shield. And if they have certain areas that they want to really thermally stress, they can lean in a little bit and give that a good dose of heat. Or if they're seeing something they don't like, they may be able to lean out a little bit and say, okay, let's move the heat around on that peak heating area on that heat shield around a little bit more. Now we
So
are
just looking at
still
the
at
world.
67 kilometers, so we
Yep.
are that path has seemed to level out a little bit. Still has a lot of heating. This does seem to be a bit longer of an entry phase than we have seen in some previous flights.
I did actually think it would be a lot more aggressive than this, but it's probably, again, amateur rocket hour sitting in the armchair in Australia. Yeah, probably it is as severe as it possibly can be.
Yep.
And yeah, so judging by these images, it doesn't look nearly as severe, but I can almost guarantee that SpaceX would be getting some really good data off this because it probably is quite severe coming in. And as you can see from the world map that's being currently blocked by Frank, yes, it's getting towards the Indian Ocean, and it looks like it's about to come down towards the west coast of Australia, which is actually, believe it or not, we're not really good with names. We call it Western Australia.
Well, we're glad to have you back, Morgan. Glad you got that wasp taken care of, and we are keeping an eye on the entry. It sounds like the Raptor engines are possibly a watch item. So there is some uncertainty on when they get through the entry phase here. When they go to try that entry burn, or that landing burn rather, whether or not it will be successful. Now, ship is coming down on 20 kilometers or 60 kilometers and 20,000 kilometers an hour. That entry continues to be a little flatter than I think I was maybe expecting to see. But there are still going to be at least 10 to 15 kilometers left of very intense heating, but we are going to see that speed start dropping off faster and faster as Starship enters the thicker parts of the atmosphere.
There is some images that have been released as well from Jacqueline, who's actually done a spectacular job of the launch, and those tracking shots are now available online under Astro Jacqueline. So ASTROJAOQUIN.
Yeah, Joaquin
On X.
is
Joaquin, sorry,
yeah,
wrong way around. Sorry.
it's all right. Yeah,
My pronunciation. My pronunciation. Rubbish.
Joaquin is incredible. The tracking footage is amazing. Once the entry and landing have concluded, make sure to get over there and give it a look. It is always stunning to see. Yeah, I will say compared to previous entries, we're seeing a lot now. We're starting to see it now, but I'm just realizing we're seeing a lot less of these little flecks of material and tiles and things sparking off from the heat shield. I feel like I feel like we've seen more of that. Well, now it's really picking up. So
yeah, the color
soon.
has changed. It's coming down through the less than 60 kilometers, and the speed, as I said, as they come down to the thicker parts of the atmosphere, is dropping exponentially.
Yeah, check out on the landing point there, right under the clock, that little shock wave, that little stagnation point that's hanging out there. That is so cool to see. That is just so beautiful and stable. We are definitely starting to see the real spicy part of the entry happening. It is kind of normal that we tend to see these little sparks and bits coming off from the heat shield. We, for the moment, though, haven't seen
partly ablative.
Well, if you push the heat shield hard enough, it can become ablative. And I think we've seen a little bit of that in the past as well. We do have those metallic tiles and a few of those tiles simulating damage that we could be seeing, ablating away. It is totally possible that we may see an orange or otherwise discolored heat shield because of those metallic tiles. In fact, at the very left edge of the screen, you can see one of those white painted tiles.
Yes, you can.
And that one seems to be holding up all right.
But we are. Fine. Oh
yeah.
No, hang on. There we go. Oh. There's the extra heating.
Yeah, we are seeing this entry starting to get a lot spicier. We haven't seen a flap, a close flap view for a minute, but I will say, in the past, by this point, we've seen burn throughs starting to happen on the flaps, And, for the moment, just based on the attitude and based on the color of the plasma coming off of it, I don't know that we're seeing that here,
No.
which, yeah, and that would be certainly
Look,
a good
it
sign
seems
because
to be
the,
much more advanced than it does in previous
yeah,
Starship flights. It seems
perfect.
to have. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
There's a
perfect
flap now.
timing.
I heard
And
you.
looks like I'm not, we're not seeing any burn throughs, any kind of, super significant heating toward the tail end of the rear flaps, which in the past has been sort of a difficult area for Starship and the heat shield. And it does track that one of the changes to the ship is that they have moved those fins back, and we have just gotten the call out that the ship has passed through peak heating. So from this point,
Excellent.
it's not that the heating goes away and the G forces are likely to pick up, but temperatures are starting to decrease a little bit now.
Still getting a lot of flashes. It looks like it might be some of the heat shield that's ablative or being
Yeah,
ablative. It could be the active cooling parts. It could be some of the damaged tiles. We're not sure yet, but we're
we
coming up
are.
on. Yeah, we're 47 kilometers up, which is still quite significantly high in the atmosphere. We're coming up to where they'll start to do those maneuvers to see what, and that will be some spectacular footage in itself.
Yeah, we are seeing quite a continuous sort of plasma or flame coming off of the engine section. Not sure what we're not sure what condition that is in. One of the watch items that SpaceX has mentioned is we are not 100% sure what the status of those engines is. They did skip doing the Raptor relight, and they're going to attempt the landing burn. Oh, hello. We so
Oh,
these are those more aggressive maneuvers that they had talked about doing. This is going to be the ship flap load test, I guess. They are really going to stress it here, trying to pull a lot more G's than the ships in the past. And my goodness, uh,
wow.
we're
That
seeing
is
it.
really maneuvering.
Yeah, that is intense. We saw it spike up to, I believe, a peak of 2.1 G's right there.
Wow.
Wow. And it got a little wobbly, but it appears to still be in control. That's astonishing.
That is astonishing.
And I mean, the flaps seem to really be in very good condition. The
And
fact
that,
that,
and given the size of those flaps, that was really swift maneuvering too, as in the flap was moving quite substantially.
yeah, I mean, it still blows me away how quickly those flaps can move. And I mean, on some of the past flights, like where the flaps were just hanging on by a thread, if they had tried to pull a 2G maneuver like that, it would have just plucked the fins right off. But here, we are definitely seeing a lot of the effects of the entry, but those flaps held strong. Looking
Very
at the
strong.
side of looking at the side of the ship, we can see that black paint, or I don't know if that's that may be an ablative material. We
It's
can see
definitely a
that
lot of
has
acceleration there. Yeah, with
yeah,
it's been impacted by the atmospheric re-entry. Yeah.
yep. And in fact, I think around the edges and down toward the middle of the ship, we can see some white discoloration that may be from one of those test tiles, one of those metallic test tiles that has kind of had its top layer vaporize and start to deposit all of that metal vapor across the ship.
Meanwhile,
Those in,
that white tile that's closest to the left-hand side is still there.
yeah, that that
Seems
that
to have
test
survived.
tile that held strong. That test tile seems to have passed with flying colors, so to speak. And speaking of flying colors, all along the steel, we see that those wild rainbow colors, just from the amount of heat that the ship gets, even radiatively. It's like the back of the ship is basically exposed to a super intense couple thousand-degree oven, and we
All
are
right, we're
starting to see ship
coming
is
down to
leaning
less than
over.
30 kilometers. Yep. It looks like it is. They're trying in a maneuver right now. Look at that orientation. It's
Wow.
completely. Is it coming? It seems to be coming inside on.
Yeah, yeah.
The orientation is changed completely. It still seems to be under control. I'm not seeing any loss of control authority here. It still seems to be well and truly under control. It just seems to be,
Max Q.
yeah.
So they have passed the maximum region of aerodynamic pressure during the entry, and we are continuing to see that ship, like you said, be under control, and we would expect it to start to line itself up to possibly hopefully attempt a landing burn. As far as we know, SpaceX is still going to attempt a landing burn. We've just heard the call out that the ship is still on target.
Wow.
As a reminder, those 3 sea-level Raptor engines are still a watch item. In a nominal situation, a nominal landing, I believe it would attempt to light all 3, down select to 2, and then down select to 1 engine for the final landing. We are still a little unsure of what the condition of those engines are because of the, skipping the on-orbit relight. But when, whatever happens when they try to do that landing burn, I guarantee it'll be exciting.
Yeah, just as a reminder for everyone that there are buoys, around about 4 buoys in the Indian Ocean at the moment that should get some spectacular images. I believe there are also drones that might be flying around, and there is also a SpaceX tugboat or something similar sitting in the Indian Ocean, which we should get some spectacular footage from, either during the live stream or post.
Yeah.
This is going to be very interesting. We're at 8 kilometers and coming down, and the speed is quite reduced. We're down to about 500 kilometers per hour and dropping. It is very leisurely. It's just so calm as compared to the atmospheric reentry. It's calm. It looks amazing.
Yep. Now we are waiting to see the ship attempt. It looks like it is beginning to yaw, and we are hoping, we assume that is going to be putting itself in an attitude to try the landing. As with a lot of these timeline items, the landing is a little bit behind schedule, but we do see the engine display up, so they are going to attempt a landing burn in just a few moments here.
Yep, and we're about to see the most spectacular part, the re-entry coming through that cloud layer.
Yeah, you can actually start to see like some condensation and a vapor cone coming off of the ship.
Yep, here we go. Oh,
look at that! It just punching through the clouds.
Did I see that?
Oh, one engine. We have a landing. Starship has landed successfully in the Indian Ocean. Look at the drone there, and it's falling over.
Oh!
Goodbye, Ship 39. Wow.
Oh. By the way, that's off the west coast of Australia. You guys owe us some money because...
Not another littering fee.
It's going to be a few Aussie dollars. Who cares? That was a completely successful mission by the looks of it. I didn't see any orange discoloration as it was in its last final moments. Did you? Did you see?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few little rusty bits, but that heat shield looked to have a lot less discoloration. That overall, that heat shield looked to be, I think, in the best shape we've seen a heat shield after entry. That was, unbelievable. Even with an engine out and a few of the timeline items a little bit off, they still managed to nail the exact landing site. I mean, it's incredibly impressive to be able to pull that off. Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was just unbelievable.
Unreal.
I'm kind of speechless.
Yeah, same here.
Wow. That was, I mean, we had mentioned, we knew that they were going to have a few extra drones, that they were going to have a few more buoys out there for the landing. I didn't expect anything like that. Wow.
I would never have guessed. I would
No.
never have guessed. I just sorry, my brain started malfunctioning. I can't form words.
Yeah, and
Wow,
with
just
that,
unreal.
just got to say thank you all for hanging out, for watching. This has been one for the history books. Totally unforgettable. If you like this stream, give it a like. Consider our channel membership to get first access to those amazing shots. The team has some incredible remote cameras that they're going to be getting stuff in for. And, you know, it sounds like there is some inclement weather closing in on our amazing back end producer and leader, Austin, who has been running this stream and managed to hold it strong. So, with that, I think we're going to be wrapping up. Uh, Josh, this has
Yeah.
been an
Uh,
absolute
Thanks.
joy.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Look, give it a like and subscribe to the Launch Haven guys. Like and subscribe, obviously, to Aussie Nord as well, because I do have my own launch coming up. Hopefully
Yep.
next month. I'll be live streaming from the middle of New South Wales. So just trying to squeeze that all in there, and just remember that as always, as I sign out of many webcasts, stay caffeinated.
Amen.